A person can earn more money than they ever imagined and still feel financially trapped. Not broke, not failing, not irresponsible, just trapped. The salary is higher than it used to be. The job title sounds better. The apartment is nicer. The car is newer. The calendar is full. From the outside, everything looks like progress. Then the month ends. The paycheck came in. The money moved out. Rent, mortgage, car payment, insurance, food, subscriptions, taxes, debt. A few things that felt deserved because the work was hard. And somehow, the raise that was supposed to change everything became normal in 6 months. This is the income illusion, the belief that if income rises, wealth will automatically follow. It sounds reasonable. It is also wrong. Income can make life easier. It can buy comfort. It can reduce pressure. It can open doors. But income is not wealth. Income is the flow. Wealth is what remains after the flow has passed, and for many high earners, almost nothing remains.
Income is money moving through your life. Wealth is the base underneath your life. That distinction matters because a stream can be large and still disappear. A doctor can make a high income and have a fragile balance sheet. A software engineer can make 6 figures and still depend completely on the next paycheck. A consultant can bill expensive hours and own very little outside the laptop, the calendar, and the client list. High income changes the size of the stream. It does not automatically build the base. The base is built when income turns into ownership. Ownership of assets. Ownership of equity. Ownership of cash flow. Ownership of systems that can produce value after the original work is done. That is the first split. One person earns money and spends most of it. Another person earns money and converts part of it into claims on future income. Same income. Different mechanism. And over time, the mechanism matters more than the number on the paycheck.
Most people live in the labor layer. This is the layer where time, skill, and effort are exchanged for income. You work, you get paid. You stop working. The payment stops. There is nothing shameful about this. Labor builds almost everything around us. Roads, hospitals, software, supply chains, restaurants, homes, companies. Labor creates real value. But labor usually gets paid once. 1 hour, 1 payment, 1 project, 1 fee, 1 salary cycle, 1 bonus cycle. The exchange ends, and then it has to be repeated. That is why income can rise without wealth rising at the same speed. A person can become more skilled, more productive, more valuable to an employer, and more exhausted. The income increases, the dependency remains. The labor layer rewards production, but it does not automatically create ownership. That is the part most people miss. The ownership layer works differently. Ownership does not pay only for time, it pays for control. Control over an asset, control over equity, control over a business model, control over intellectual property, control over real estate, control over a system that can keep producing value without requiring the same labor input every time. A programmer may earn income for writing code. The company that owns the product can sell that code again and again. A consultant may get paid once for solving a problem. A firm that owns the process, the client relationship, and the brand can turn that knowledge into recurring revenue. A worker may help operate a building. The owner of the building owns a claim on the rent. Same economy, different layer. Labor creates income inside the system. Ownership captures value from the system. That sentence is the whole video. A paycheck is not useless. A paycheck is fuel. But fuel is not an engine. This is where many people get stuck. They treat income as the engine of wealth. It is not. Income is the raw material. What matters is what the income becomes after it arrives. Does it become only consumption? Does it become status? Does it become debt service? Does it become a lifestyle that now requires an even larger paycheck to maintain? Or does part of it become ownership? That question is uncomfortable because it removes the easy answer. It is no longer enough to say, I make good money. The better question is, how much of that money becomes an asset base? Not someday, not when life gets easier, not after the next raise. Now. Because if every raise becomes a lifestyle upgrade, income rises, but ownership stays flat. The person earns more, but owns the same. And if ownership does not increase, wealth has a ceiling. Most people lose income in one dramatic mistake. They lose it quietly. One upgrade at a time. A better apartment because the old one felt too small. A nicer car because the commute felt miserable. Better restaurants because the work week was brutal. Better vacations because burnout needed a reward. Better subscriptions, better clothes, better furniture, better schools, better neighborhoods. None of this is evil. Comfort is not the enemy. The problem is sequence. If lifestyle expands before ownership expands, the person becomes more expensive to maintain. That is the trap. A higher income creates a higher standard of living. A higher standard of living creates higher fixed costs. Higher fixed costs create more dependence on income. The raise did not create freedom, it created a larger machine that now needs to be fed. This is why someone can feel richer for a few months after a raise, then return to the same pressure. The number changed, the structure did not. Ownership changes the payoff structure. At first, it barely looks powerful. A small brokerage account, a small equity stake, a small business reinvesting cash flow, a rental property with thin margins, a debt balance slowly falling. None of it feels dramatic. Visible wealth usually looks more impressive. The car is visible. The watch is visible. The apartment is visible. The asset base is quiet. But the quiet part matters, because ownership can compound. Cash flow buys assets. Assets create more cash flow. More cash flow buys more assets. That is the wealth flywheel. It starts slowly, almost embarrassingly slowly. Then the direction changes. Income is no longer only funding consumption. Income is building ownership. Ownership begins producing value. That value increases the ability to acquire more ownership. The person is still working, but labor is no longer the only thing working. The asset base is working too. That is the structural difference. Imagine two people with the same income, same city, same job level, same tax bracket, same starting point. Person A earns income and upgrades life whenever income rises. The upgrades are reasonable, nothing extreme. Better housing, better food, better travel, better convenience. From the outside, person A looks successful. Person B also earns income, but person B treats part of that income as raw material. Some becomes equity, some becomes cash reserves, some reduces debt, some buys assets, some gets reinvested into skills, tools, or a small system that can earn without another hour being sold. For the first few years, person B may look less successful. That is the strange part. Ownership often looks unimpressive at the beginning. Then time passes. Person A still has income. Person B has income, plus an asset base. Person A gets paid when labor happens. Person B gets paid when labor happens, and when ownership produces. The gap was not created by intelligence. It was not created by virtue. It was not created by some secret rich people understand. It was created by conversion. One converted income into lifestyle, the other converted income into ownership. This is why income is a poor scoreboard. Income measures the flow. It does not measure resilience. It does not measure optionality. It does not measure how long someone can survive without selling more time. It does not measure whether the person owns claims on future cash flow. A high salary can hide a weak balance sheet. A bonus can hide lifestyle inflation. A prestigious job can hide total dependence on the next pay cycle. Wealth is harder to fake. Wealth shows up in the base: assets, equity, cash flow, lower dependence, more options, more time between pressure and panic. That does not make income irrelevant. Income still matters, but income is the door. Ownership is the room behind it. Most people are trained to open the door. Few are taught what to build once they walk through it. The useful question is not only, how much do I make? That question matters, but it is incomplete. The better question is, what does my income become? After the paycheck arrives, where does it go? Into consumption? Into status? Into debt service? Into comfort? Into assets? Into equity? Into claims on future cash flow? That question reveals the mechanism. Because wealth is not created when money arrives. Wealth is created when money is converted into something that remains. That is the difference. Income can improve life today. Ownership changes the structure of tomorrow. Income pays bills. Ownership builds the base. Income can buy comfort. Ownership can create control. Income is earned. Wealth is accumulated. And accumulation requires something income alone cannot provide: a place for the money to stay. So a person can earn more money than they ever imagined and still feel trapped. Not because they failed, not because work is meaningless, not because the system can be reduced to villains and victims. The reason is simpler. Their income increased, but their ownership did not. And without ownership, wealth has a ceiling. This is the ownership gap. The gap between people who only earn from labor and people who convert income into assets that can compound. The goal is not to admire the wealthy. The goal is to understand the mechanisms that created the outcome. Because once money stops being only something you earn, it becomes something you can convert into assets, into equity, into cash flow, into a wealth engine. Income is the stream. Ownership is the base. And wealth begins when the stream becomes something that remains.